Today's talk is an advanced talk because it starts from the premise that we already understand that we are source, that we source our lives, and that our spiritual practice is what brings to the front this, what for some of us is a very obvious knowing, that there is only one, that we are this one, and thus we source our lives. And so from that standpoint, it's important to ask ourselves, what are we making the priority in any given moment? Are we making the priority the thing that we want? Or are we making the priority our spiritual knowing? So this gets very subtle, because if what you want is a great life with a lot of joy and happiness and wonderful stuff going on, then you are not, then what you are focused on is that instead of your spiritual practice. If you are focused on your spiritual practice, you will have a wonderful life filled with joy and wonderment. But the difference is, are you looking at the external or the internal in that particular moment? And that difference is everything. And so my talk today is standing in the truth. Standing in that place of what really is true in any given moment. Not what some people say is true. You know, that word gets thrown around a lot. People say, I'm going to be honest with you. I want to share my feelings. This is what's true for me. All that stuff is weather report, because the weather changes. But what's true, the absolute truth, stands no matter what. Now, for those of us who understand sourcing, one of the worst things that science of mind has come up with is when you're someplace at a Science of Mind church with us Science of Mind others, and somebody says to you, well, how did you create, and you're telling them about something going on in your life, and they ask you, well, how did you create this? That is no help at all. It is useless. And it is whoever's asking the question looking outside themselves at how somebody else should be, instead of looking at what's true, being in the truth for themselves, which if you were, you'd never ask that kind of question, knowing how unhelpful it is. I was at a vision quest in which my job was to be with the fire, just putting all my energy into the fire so that the fire then fed the questers who were up on the mountain. And so I'm standing at, and I wasn't the only one with that job. There were many of us. And so I'm standing at the fire, and I'm pouring all my love and energy into the fire, and behind me, some folks start joking around and are looking away, not being focused on the fire. So I turned to look at them, and the second I did, the shaman says to me, now you are not with the fire. And so for each of us, whenever we are looking out there, we are not with our fire. We are not standing in our truth. So what I say about truth is that truth is only truth if it roots all the way down. What do I mean by that? To the center of our being, to the center of the universe. If it doesn't root all that way, it is not the truth. It is simply a weather report. It is something relative to the moment that's passing. But truth doesn't change. And what is the truth? The truth is that we are powerful, creative, spiritual beings unified in the one. That's the truth. That is an absolute truth that does not change irregardless of circumstance. That is the truth. We need to root in every second of every day. Now, at least go for that, because that's what spiritual practice is all about. Spiritual practice isn't something you do in the morning, then go about your day, and then maybe get back to it at night. It's what you dig up and bring out in any moment. You are not rooted in truth. The second you recognize yourself not rooted in truth, then it's time to do your spiritual practice right then and there. Not wait, right then and there. Because if you are making something else more important, then you have prioritized something above your spiritual nature. The second you say, I don't have time to practice right now, I'm too busy. What I'm doing is urgent. What I'm doing is important. This is what's going on. You have, in that moment, made something else more important than the one thing that you say you make important by showing up here, which is your spiritual being, rooted in the truth. So what are the qualities of the truth? Wholeness, peace, love, perfection, divine. Perfection, perfect and right time. You can't ever be late. It's not actually possible. There is only perfect and right time. That's all that exists. And so when something feels urgent, it's because you have allowed it to feel so. It is not because that's actually the case. It is because in that moment you are not rooted in truth. And it is a great moment to get back, to bring up whatever spiritual practice you use in that moment. The Dalai Lama says, my religion is kindness. And I believe that that is the heart of anyone's spiritual practice, to bring to it kindness. I know for myself that the second I feel out of sorts, the first thing I need to do is grab a hold of myself so that I do not lash out, so that I stay kind externally and then internally. Somebody early today was talking about when they are not rooted in spiritual truth, they get very upset with themselves about it. But we know here, because we talk about it week after week, it's not what you do first, it's what you do second. I've heard the Dalai Lama talk about his own upset. This man does get upset. He actually gets angry. But he has his spiritual practice that he brings in immediately. He knows the second he feels angry, the second he feels upset, it's time for his spiritual practice. He gets right on it. And that is the beauty of this man who we see pronounce kindness throughout the world. We spoke about this man last week, Palden Gyatso, tortured 33 years by the Chinese. And what he teaches us is that there is no circumstance that is worth giving up your spiritual practice for. There is nothing more important than staying kind and loving and rooted in truth. Here is a man who was tortured 33 years, and look at his face. This is the man of enlightenment. Here is a man who possesses what we are still working towards. Look at his face. We talked about this last week. In fact, Carol had this great quote last week that she said, whining about what? I've been using that all week, Carol, because it's powerful to remind ourselves that there's nothing going on worth giving up our rooted truth for, our spiritual center for. So truth is only truth if it roots all the way down. The idea, what we need to be doing is keeping our spiritual practice alive and bringing it to the moments where we need it most. And using the absence of truth to remind us it's time for our spiritual practice. When is it time for our spiritual practice? Whenever we feel unrooted in the truth and recognize that to be the case. So sometimes it takes somebody else, getting support from others. One of the things, let me talk about finding a way, because that was a question I was asked earlier. What tools do you use to actually get back to being rooted in truth? And actually, I learned my best tool in boxing. I had a trainer who, when I got in the ring with, he just said, hit me. And then would bob and weave. And when we first started training, I could not hit this man. I'm punching away, and he's ducking and weaving. And I'm just missing him like crazy. I'm not even getting close. And all he kept saying to me is, find a way, find a way, find a way. Week after week, find a way, find a way. And I kept swinging away and got that into my brain, find a way, until finally I started hitting him. Finally, I started connecting. And what it taught me is there's always a way. And so the thing that I do that brings me back to the moment the most is first recognize that since I'm upset, angry, or whatever, I must not be rooted in spiritual truth. Secondly, remind myself that that's really where I want to be. And then third, that I can find a way. I've got the tools, and I'm going to run through every single one of them or find more until I get back rooted. But it becomes my priority. And that's really the key here, because it's so easy to think that what it is we want to accomplish is our priority. What it is that we want to get is our priority. Even when it's a being of service for what it is we want to be of service for others is our priority. But the key here is that what we are doing is reaching into ourselves and remembering that the priority is our spiritual truth. The priority is that we bring to life that which we truly are. Truth is only truth if it roots all the way down. In finding that our tools, one of the best tools is support from others. If what we're doing for ourselves isn't working, don't be afraid to get support from others. I love it when Ashley comes to me after I've said something that clearly is not rooted in spiritual truth and asks me, why did you say that? What were you thinking you'd get out of saying that? That we'd become closer together and be unified or separated? Because anything we say or do that feels separating is not rooted in truth. And so I love it when she says that to me, because it reminds me. Other times, when I'm saying things negative about myself, she is very quick to get my attention and say, stop it. I love that kind of support. Having that kind of support makes all the difference for me, and it might for you too. So I am here for any one of you who wants that spiritual support. You are not walking this path alone. None of us are. This is our spiritual family, and we come together to do this together. And it's not just on Wednesdays. This is just when we hang out. But at any other time, you can call me, write me, we can talk. We support each other. Truth is only truth if it roots all the way down. And what is the spiritual truth? That we are powerful, creative, spiritual beings, unified in the one. Keep your spiritual practice alive. Bring it to the moments you need it most. And use the absence of the truth to remind you it's time for your spiritual practice. Whenever that is, if in the absence of truth, that means it's time to do your spiritual practice. So close your eyes. Let's do a little meditation to close this. Take a deep breath and relax. Imagine yourself on a path. It is the perfect path. The sights, the sounds, the feeling against your skin. It is the perfect path. Maybe it's in the woods. Maybe it's up in the clouds. Maybe it's in your home. Wherever it is, it's your perfect path. Imagine you come to a clearing. It is your sanctuary. It is the perfect sanctuary. The temperature, the feeling, the sights, the sounds, the light. It's exactly perfect for your sanctuary. There's a chair there. It is your perfect chair. Go sit in it and feel the of sitting in your perfect chair. Imagine yourself immersed in the truth, sinking down into the root that you are a powerful, creative spiritual being, unified in the one. Feel yourself immersed in it. Feel yourself deep within its roots. Feel yourself rooting down into this truth so that it vibrates through every cell of your being. That every part of you expresses love, harmony, perfection, divinity. Now remember a circumstance that where you were not rooted in the truth. In fact, the very last one that happened, where you felt urgent, anxious, angry, whatever emotion came up that was not rooted in truth, and bring it into this space. Bring it in to the presence of the truth, right here, right now. Imagine immersing that situation, that condition, that circumstance in truth. And feel it transform right here and right now. Thank yourself for a deepening of your experience of being rooted in the one. And when you are ready, open your eyes.